Live right now. So, hello everyone, and happy Tuesday, I guess it is. And we are here with Joe Tegtmeyer to talk about the Cybertruck delivery event and some new details that we are just getting from the Sandy Monroe interview that was just released. So, Sandy Monroe had 2 hours to test drive the Cybertruck, and he also had his second interview with Elon Musk. So, a lot of great details in that interview, including I will play a little clip. Maybe we'll wait a second because we don't have too many people watching it. But Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me. And it's been a few days since Cybertruck delivery event, so I've had a chance to really think it over and kind of reflect on all the things that we saw. And you know, I just want to start off first by saying thank you very much to Tesla for giving such an amazing amount of access to that event. Not only seeing the production line and some of the swag that we got for being there, but they also made a lot of their employees available to talk, and that would be top level all the way down, and it was just incredible.
Now, unfortunately, I didn't have any time to talk to any of those employees because I got in maybe 15 minutes
Yeah,
before the keynote. Were you able to talk to any of them?
I talked to quite a few people. I got a chance to meet and talk with Franz, also Tom Zhu, obviously Martin Vieca, and a lot of the kind of, I guess you call them mid-level managers, and a lot of the employees that are making the production line work. And it was just great to be able to talk to them about all kinds of stuff. Some of it has to do with the construction of Giga Texas, and I've just put out some updates on that. And some of it was just talking to the baseline employees that were just so excited to be able to get a chance to show what they've been working on. I think that was probably the common theme, is that they know they've done a lot of great work. It's just been a long time before they've been able to get that out for everybody to see, and they were just excited.
Yeah, and Andrew says he was impressed seeing the production line. I know that we all were. I was particularly surprised that they let us film it. Were you surprised
Yeah.
by that?
Well, yeah, when I first walked in, I asked one of the people there, is it okay to take pictures in the production line? And part of the reason why I asked that is on the previous shareholders meeting, they would not allow us to do that. They gave us a tour, but they said no. And this time they said, sure. And I went, okay, can I share it? And they went, yeah, do whatever you want. So I'm like, awesome.
That's just never been the case because I've been to
No.
several of the shareholder events and
Mm,
cyber rodeo, and it's always been put your phones away. So that was very interesting. And
yeah.
Eddie says you should do a couple of minutes countdown to give people a chance to tune in. Well, Eddie, we are just getting started, and we are waiting for more people to join us. But while we're waiting, show
Mm.
us your memento. I have
Oh, yeah.
a Cybertruck wristband. Oops, it's upside down, I think, which is not bad. But you have the cool memento.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
this
I was going to say, this is a piece of actual stainless steel that they use to make the Cybertruck. And you can, see, I'll get it close to the camera. If you can read it, Cybertruck, most valuable, refer, of course, the date and Gigafactory, Texas. And, it's quite strong, difficult to bend. I mean, it's what you would expect for the Cybertruck. The other thing is, if you look at the thickness of it, it's about 1.8 millimeters. So, some people say it's the same material as the Starship, but the Starship's closer to 4 millimeters, so it's about twice as thick as this. But it's still generally the same material, which is really great. And also another thing that you can tell, which I think Cybertruck owners are going to have to deal with, is you can see fingerprints on it.
Oh, wow.
So that's something that I don't know. There's a bunch of products that are going to come out for the Cybertruck owners, I'm sure. But
Well,
this is a great memento.
we're already getting a few questions for you, Joe. And Joe, you are our expert. So Ross wants to know, did you think the production line looked ready for a full rollout of Cybertruck at scale?
Um, I'm not sure why my camera is not focusing very well. There we go. Yeah, I think so. What we saw on the production line and what you'd see in like the video that I put out is the ground floor of subframe, some of it the window, and some of it's the final assembly. We also saw for the event itself where the end of line is, where they go through that tunnel and they do the last checks. But what we didn't see is like the casting machines or the stamping machines, the body in white where they weld that center passenger cabin. And at least in my video, I show you some drone shots from the third floor showing where the doors are made and the front hood is made and other parts of the system. So what we saw at the event was about maybe 65% of the line, and in my video, I gave maybe another 10% of that. So.
Well, why don't we play? So, Sandy Monroe just released his interview with Elon, and I think we got a lot of great information out of it. It's not always an Elon interview, they're not always a slam dunk, right? He gets asked a lot of the same questions or information that we already knew. So, I'm just going to play a very short clip from the interview, and then we can get into those details.
I mean, everybody's been, holding their breath for at least 4 years. So, what really was the biggest challenge?
Well, I think people sometimes forget, it's not like we're going to deliver the car in 2019. We announced the car in 2019. I think we sort of expected perhaps that we would be in production in a couple of years later in 21 or something like that. But there was a worldwide pandemic. Then there was a global chip shortage. And there were shortages of so many parts. It would be irrelevant for us to bring to market a car for which that we simply do not have parts to make.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good reason.
Yeah.
So I've got a
So that was kind of hard to hear, but he was talking about the supply shortage during the pandemic, and it would be irrelevant for them to produce the car if they didn't have the parts, correct?
Right. Yeah. And another thing just to keep in mind, the pandemic didn't just affect the logistics for the Cybertruck itself as a product. But if you remember watching my videos back in that time, it also affected the construction of Giga Texas because the amount of labor needed, the materials that were needed, all of the support to build the factory itself was also impacted a lot during 2020 and all the way through 2021. And, in addition to that, Austin had many multi-billion-dollar projects going on around the city. And that was also taking labor, materials, and equipment. And there was a lot of back and forth between various companies trying to make sure that they had what they needed to just build the factory, not alone the items and the products needed for the Cybertruck itself. So a lot was going on during that time, and it really affected it.
Right. Speaking of those fingerprints, Mitchell says fingerprints will buff out. A DeLorean owner stated they come off easily and stainless is easy to care for. And we saw a DeLorean again at the after party. I think that DeLorean has been at every Tesla event that I've been to.
Yeah. If in a pinch, WD-40 works wonderful on stainless steel.
Yeah. So why don't we get into, you shared with me some slides and some images that you want to talk about. So would you like me to pull those up?
Sure.
Okay, great. So, and you are going to have to walk us through these because we literally just decided we were going to go live 30 minutes ago.
All right. Well, in no particular order, we're starting here with, this is the front of the Cybertruck. This was a display that they had for us at the delivery event. So it doesn't necessarily indicate what it would be like on the production line. This was really a display. So some of the items that you may see are somewhat out of order, particularly having the wheels and tires on at this stage. But, a couple of things that I will point out here that is of interest is, first of all, the entire front structure is a one-piece casting, and that's kind of that lighter tan, large structure that everything else is bolted to. And one of the interesting things that I noticed or I saw at the production line was the basic shell or the basic body of the Cybertruck is composed of three main parts. It's a front and rear casting that's done in the gigapresses, and it's an injected molded aluminum process. And out of that comes one giant piece, a front piece and a rear piece. And then the middle piece is the passenger shell, and that's made up of high strength steel that has been stamped and welded together. And then these three pieces are bolted together, front and rear, and the floor is empty because that will be eventually for the structural pack in the interior. But basically, three large pieces make up the Cybertruck, which is really incredible. Another thing that I noticed on the production line and it's a big difference between what you see at a normal production line and this one. Is the glass, the windshield, the roof, and the rear glass was put in next. So it's still just the body with the front rear castings in that middle shell, and then the glass is put on. Normally at a regular car manufacturing line, the glass is one of the last things put in. So all the interior is in, the fenders are in, everything is on, and then they put the glass. So it was really interesting to see that. And I think part of that is because the glass itself, the windshield, the roof, actually adds some structural rigidity to the actual three-piece section of the Cybertruck.
Interesting. I did not know that. And Andrew, I think that we had this confirmed during the event, but are the electrics all 48 volt?
Yes, they are. They are, and they use, I think, Ethernet and CAN bus all at that 48 volt throughout. So all of the items that are connected to it all work with that as well.
Well, Phil, thanks for reminding people to like the video.
Yeah.
And so let's talk. Let's go to the next slide.
Well, just a couple other things I just want to talk about here. You know that it has steer by wire, so there's no steering, rod or whatever that goes through the firewall to the steering rack, and you can actually see the steering rack right on the front. It's those two round-shaped silver items right in front of the anti-roll bar, and so you don't have to have that steering column that goes through the firewall to that. So making it left or right drive would be extremely easy. The only other kind of legacy, if you will, item that's left is if you look at the firewall on the side where it's kind of open, there's a small section that is open you can see through. Right in front of that is the anti-lock brake actuator, and then there's the lines that have the hydraulic fluid that go to the brakes. So that's really the last item that could eventually go to, like, say, a brake-by-wire system. And we may see that incorporated either later in, maybe a refresh of the Cybertruck or with that new gen vehicle, because once you get rid of that, you don't have to run those hydraulic lines all the way through the body. So it makes assembly that much easier. And the last thing I'll mention that is very interesting how the Cybertruck is built is I told you that they have the front rear casting and the shell, and that makes up the bulk of the Cybertruck. They have, I think it's 1, 2, 3. If you count the structural battery pack as a subassembly itself, there's 4 main subassemblies that are built outside of the vehicle. The front suspension, which has the motor, the steering, everything is all one piece. You have the rear that has all of the same. And then you have the structural pack that has the interior. And then you have the subassembly pack that would go sort of on the top of this display that has all of your HVAC, air conditioning, ventilation, heating, all that. Those are just basically assembled as a unit outside, and then they're just put onto the vehicle, and then it's done. I mean, yeah, the exterior shell, we'll get to that in a minute, and how that's put on, but it's essentially just a series of Lego blocks going together, and it's really impressive to see how that works.
Yeah, let's see what is the next slide. Okay, here we go. You ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, this is farther along. Obviously, this is close to where the finishing parts of the construction would be. Obviously, at this point, still the doors are not on, and that's something I want to touch on briefly. At a regular car manufacturing plant, when they make the body in white, which is when they weld it all together, at some point they actually hang the doors as well. So you'll have the doors on it, you'd have the hood on it, maybe the trunk. They'd all be, open. They're not finished, but it would be all of the metal parts. And then that would go through the paint shop. And then once it's all painted, then they take the doors off, and then they go to a different part of the factory and they assemble the doors. And then you have to follow it along the entire processing line and then marry those back up at some point later in the future. With the Cybertruck, instead, up the third floor, they make those doors separate from the vehicle. They never actually come to the vehicle until just after this step. And they can get away with it because it's all stainless steel. It's not painted. You won't have variations of the paint color. You just have to match the interiors together. In a regular manufacturing process, the doors are kind of marked to the specific vehicle. And this one, they can pick and choose as they need. And I think that's, that really frees them up a lot.
Yeah. Wow. And speaking of, the stainless, did you like the black wrap that they had on display for $6,500?
Well, I'll answer that in two parts. Did I like how it looked? Absolutely. Did I like the price? Maybe not. But,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if aftermarket's not going to find a way to make that cheaper, because for the most part, I think there's 13 panels that it would have to be covered, all the stainless steel panels, and they're all essentially flat. So
Right.
even a do-it-yourselfer could probably do a really good job on this vehicle without too much work.
Do you think that it could become cheaper to wrap a Cybertruck versus like my Model 3?
I think the aftermarket's going to have to figure that out, but at first they'll probably charge a premium because it's a premium vehicle and they know everybody's going to want it. But somewhere down the road, I would not. It would not surprise me if they figured out a way of making it cheaper. For example, if you look at this particular picture, you see the stainless steel, which would be wrapped, but the inside is the metal is basically e-coated. It's a process where they dip it into a tank, and then it's through I think electro processes. It deposits that material onto the steel, and I don't think it has been spray painted in any way. It may be, but it could just be an e-coating. So with the wrap, you wouldn't really want to wrap on the inside on the door jambs, which sometimes people want to do. So I think that would really simplify a wrap process as well.
Well, Andrew says, I bet your wrap did not cost that much, Ellie, in space. I'm not asking you to comment on that if you do not want. I was fortunate that my wrap was sponsored, so I did not pay anything for my wrap, but I think it would have been maybe 10 or 11 grand for all the work that I had done. It was PPF and vinyl first, I guess, and then PPF. So they definitely get expensive.
Yeah. Well, let's get some Cybertrucks out for a while and let's see what the aftermarket comes up with. But I think they'll be competitive to what Tesla offers.
Right. So let's see. Are you ready for the next one?
Sure. The last thing on this particular shot, as you can see, obviously the front and rear suspension subunits have already been installed at this point. And again, those are all built separate from the vehicle. And then at the appropriate time, they just lift the entire thing up, do a few bolts, and it's in.
Wow. Well, Joe, Richard says you are highly underappreciated in the community for the amount of knowledge you give us and the work you put in. I mean, you really know a lot. It is quite astonishing, like not only about Tesla, but SpaceX as well. So we appreciate you being such a great source of knowledge.
Well,
and
thank you. And thank you very much, Richard, for those comments. I appreciate it.
Well, and it sounds like you're doing a bunch of interviews. So you'll be on Herbert's show at 3 Central today, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Glenn says this is Tim Dodd level knowledge. I mean, you really do. I mean, you laugh, but it's true. You're humble. So let's see what this next slide is, if you're ready.
Okay.
It's a surprise to you because you don't know the order.
Okay. This is another view of that same display Cybertruck that they had for the event. You can see another one up to the upper left, and it was less assembled. It was basically the shell and the two castings. And this particular one, a couple of things that I want to point out that's of interest. First of all, people want to know if I were camping in the back or if I wanted to get air conditioning in the bed for whatever reason, can I do that with the Cybertruck? I think the answer is probably going to be no. What you see here is the glass rear window or the rear pane. That's basically fixed to the vehicle, so it doesn't move up or down. And then those two vents that you see, the square vents a little bit lower, first of all, those are hidden by the bed liner, so they don't go into the bed itself. And second, what that is for is the flow-through ventilation of the cockpit. So as the heat or the air is coming through your vents in the dashboards, it's got to go somewhere. So this is one of the ways that it exits through the vehicle. And these are actually pretty common in most cars, but they're usually hidden behind the rear bumper. In this case, it's that wall. So I know that some people may be a little bit bummed about those revelations, but I think that's what we are seeing. And another couple of things to show. This is that entire rear casting that the lighter color, not the more gold that you see, but just that lighter color. And that pretty much makes up the entire rear structure of the vehicle. And then that subframe with the motor, you can see that crossbar, the steering rack, all that stuff is on a subassembly that's just bolted right up to the underside of that casting. And then on those sides, those, I don't know, the darker goldish items, you can see there's 4 of them. I call them the sails. I don't know what the actual name is, but they serve 2 important purposes. First is as you're going over bumps and the suspension is working, it's trying to essentially bend the casting upward. So to prevent that, they have those sails on the top of the castings on either side, and they're bolted to the steel frame or the body of the passenger compartment. And what that does is it takes the vertical loads and then it redistributes it into the body cabin. So it kind of makes a triangular, arrangement that is used to ensure that the castings are extremely strong. They can take all the loads of the suspension, and then it is distributed into the cabin of the vehicle. So that's one of the reasons why it's just such a strong structure that they've built, because if you ever look at truss bridges, they always have triangular elements on it, and that's the best, most efficient way of distributing loads. And that's essentially one large triangular structural piece. And then the 2 smaller ones at the very back, that's what forms the shell, if you will, of the rear of the truck. It allows for the panels, the exterior panels, to be bolted to it, but it also gives the strength around the tailgate for that. So essentially, 4 pieces that are bolted to the 1-piece casting makes the entire rear structure.
Wow. Now, I do want to mention that we are getting a few questions. I am going to save those for after the slides, and then we still need to talk about the Sandy discussion with Elon.
Okay.
So let me know if you want to go to the
We
next.
can go on to the next one. If anybody has particular questions, you can, but I'm trying to cover the essentials of what we see in the pictures.
Right. I'm saving them all. You will be grilled. You'll be in the hot seat very soon.
All right, cool. Well, this picture is it's a great picture to see. What it is the front fenders that are being lined up, ready for the robot to pick them up and then attach them to the sides of the vehicle, and they are attached directly to the castings. This also brings up one of the observations that I had of the entire production line, and that is the amount of automation was just stunning to see. There were very, very few stations that required people.
Right.
Almost all of it was by robots in various stages, whether they were lifts to bring the vehicle body up to the next floor, or to move it from side to side, or to pick up panels like this, to put the windshield in, to put the structural pack with the interior in. All of that is done robotically. And it's, I think people underestimated, even though I've been showing all along all of the equipment that's been going into the factory for the last year. I think people greatly underestimated the level of automation. But this picture, go ahead.
Didn't they say at the end of the line there, when you went through the light tunnel, that was like the most human-centric part of the process?
Right. That point and just beyond it is pretty much where most of the people were. Mm-hmm. All the rest of the pictures that you're seeing here, we've already talked about, or if you watch my video as I go through the line, I would say at least 90% of it was robots.
Wow.
Maybe more. It was just incredible. But I want to get back to this picture real quick. This is the front fender. This would be the front left fender, and its construction and the way it's put onto the vehicle is very interesting to me. First of all, the production of these items is upstairs on the 3rd floor, and it's again done by robots. And in the Sandy interview, at the beginning of the interview, they actually went to a fabrication plant to talk about the Trump. That's TRUMPF, not Trump, but Trump. That's the true bending machines. And they are the ones that Lars talked about as the air benders, where they use a combination of heating up the elements to the stainless steel to make it plastically pliable, and then also using the air, basically a suspension between the tool and the metal itself to do the correct bending. Well, all that's done by those True Bend machines. And way back in the 12th of May, I actually talked about those. I showed you how they worked, where they were going. And to see that in the Sandy interview was really cool to see them showing how that all worked.
Wow, that's crazy.
But yeah, but anyway, so that's up on the 3rd floor, and they do the bending of the metal and the shaping to get the exterior shape. And then in stamping, they stamp out the inner structure, and then those are bonded together with adhesive. And that simplifies the bonding process. There's no welding, there's no bolts, there's nothing. It's just adhesively attached. It also prevents galvanic corrosion between the dissimilar metals, which is another benefit. And most importantly, they have the fasteners. They're basically, threaded screws that are put onto the inner panel. And then when the robot picks them up, it just positions them right onto the castings, because the castings are still open at this point. Even though the interior is in at this point, the glass is all in, the suspension is all in at this point. They still don't have the exterior panel. So the robots are able to pick them up, position them, and then another robot reaches from the inside and bolts them along the sides and on the inside, and then it's done. There's another picture, if you can find, of the crashed. There you go.
Right there.
And this is a great view. If you can see the 2 fenders that are kind of bent out, you can see that inner stamped item, the shell, and you can see how it's adhesively bonded to the exterior stainless steel. And then you can see where the attachment tabs are directly onto the castings.
Wow.
And so that's how it's put together. That's how it's assembled. And I was thinking later on, if you were to get into an accident with your Cybertruck and you needed to replace, say, the fender, it may actually be cheaper than current cars, because there's not going to be any bending back out of the metal. There won't be any of the Bondo, the primer, the paint work, all of that. I think what they would do instead is they would just replace that panel. So rather than having to fix the stainless steel to try to make it straight, they wouldn't have to. And they've already got the substructure. So it's a bolt off, bolt on type of thing.
Yeah, the only regret that I have is that we didn't have more time there.
Right.
Because there, not only on the inside was it interesting to see the line, but on the outside they had 7 or 8 different Cybertrucks of like different varieties on display.
I think there was closer to 15, because there was like 5 on one side, there was 7 on another side, a bunch in the middle area.
It was, oh God, I really wish that I had time, but this was a very short event and very small.
Yeah.
I don't know if people.
Well, I think,
yeah,
it was designed to be a delivery event, and everything else was just extra.
Right.
So I think that played into it. And, I think, I don't know if you're going to get into it or not, but there was some external concerns going on at the same time that may have impacted that as well.
Let's talk about it. Because I don't know. I made a Cybertruck video, aftermath or recapping the event. And I didn't talk about the main problem that I had, which was I almost didn't get in. I almost did not get one of these wristbands. I had to wait outside for like almost 45 minutes, which was very frustrating. I did not try to bully my way in because I'm belly in space. I had a +1 invite. So I wasn't the primary invite, but I was a verified +1. And I got there and they were like, sorry, we're not taking any more +1s. We're at capacity. And I'm thinking, well, for Cyber Rodeo, you had like 15,000 people. So part of it is that they had, Xander says he confirmed with fire marshals 500 was the max capacity. So they had us cramped at the very end of the production line. It was super sweltering hot in there. So like if there were an emergency, it would have been chaos. But there was another concern that I didn't know about until after the event. And that's that there was apparently a foiled plot for a mass shooting.
Right. Apparently somebody from Florida had made some comments online and went the next step and drove all the way from Florida out to Austin. So that's kind of scary.
It's terrifying to think about.
Yeah.
I like had a hard time reading that. I was like, wait, so we were like that really could have been carried out. And who knows, right?
Yeah, but you know, I will tell you that in my time flying out at Giga Texas for several years, I've got a chance to meet some of the Travis County sheriffs. That periodically they'll stop, and one, they want to make sure I'm okay because I'm flying over by the highway and everything. But two, I think they just want to make sure that the area is safe, and you know, it's part of their job. And also, Tesla security is, I think, underrated. I don't think people realize just how secure Giga Texas is, the amount of monitoring that is going on, plus the staff. And you know, I've got a chance to meet and talk with many of them over the several years as well. And I was telling you earlier, yesterday during my flight, one of the security guys came up and we were talking, and it was very clear that they are in heightened, even right now, they're on heightened security. So one, I think that's great for protecting everybody and the workers and making sure Giga Texas is safe. But two, if for some reason, at least in the near term, if you want to go out to Giga Texas, just be very aware that they are at a heightened level of security right now.
Right, right. Well, and Arnie wants to know, did you have to go through a security check with metal detectors? I did.
Yeah.
And I had these like little, I don't know, dangly, sparkly things on the back of my dress. And I had to keep going through over and over. I was on the phone with you. I was like not getting through security at first because my dress. Wow. I was really scared that I wasn't going to be able to get in. So that was good. But if you did not get into the event, there were no chairs and it was super hot back there. So like we were not in paradise.
Right.
Do not think that we were in paradise.
Yeah. A tip for people who may go to another one of these events that I found extremely helpful: have a selfie stick. So I was able to put my camera way above everybody else and get unobstructed video.
Oh my gosh, everyone. With their phones. It was like, oh, really? Just enjoy the moment. I get it though. Everyone wants that moment. But that's a weird thing too, is like everyone wanted, you know, the moment that Elon walked out. But I didn't see Elon the entire event because there was a pillar right here and I was smushed behind taller people and that was it.
Yeah, but you know, actually, that pillar actually plays a role in the video I put out for my production line. It shows exactly where we were in the factory. It was H83, and I have a whole map of Giga Texas with all the grid lines, and it was kind of neat to be able. I know it blocked the view, but it was great to be able to definitively say, here we are.
Right, right. Okay, so I think we have 2 more slides if you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, so next slide is...
Yeah, this is part of the initial setup of the rear suspension or the rear subassembly. And the reason why I like this shot is you can see the kind of the plate with all of the various red things sticking up that's used to align all the various parts. So in this case, you have the rear brake rotors, calipers, the steering knuckle itself attached as a unit. And those are the 2 items that you see on there right now. And then the rest of it would be assembled as this goes through the production line. And then at the end of the production line for this particular subunit, it would have the motor, the rear steering, the shocks, everything that you need for it to be in the vehicle. And then it's just moved over and robotically moved up and attached to the rear of the car. And then you see the same for the front. And like I said, it's just like a giant Lego. And again, the ability for them to be as automated as they are stems from something like this, which is setting up the machine that builds the machine. Right. And, you know, one of the things that was very evident to me, and it was a quote, I think, that was taken out of context from Elon when he was talking about the difficulty in producing the Cybertruck. And most people were saying, well, you said it was going to be easy. Well, I think he was actually referring to the factory and the production line itself, because once you get this subassembly system, you know, working, and you have the logistics to bring in the parts that you need, it's really kind of simple to build the car. And I know that sounds like I'm oversimplifying it. It's very complex, but getting the logistics, getting the tools, getting the system to build everything set, calibrated, have the employees tested, that are trained and tested so that they know how to do all this stuff. Once all of that hard work is set up, then making the Cybertruck is relatively easy. And I think we're going to see, as the production ramps and as they, work out whatever issues that may come up as they get that higher production line, this is what's going to be key to getting those Cybertrucks built at a very high rate, and also keeping the costs down and giving the margins that everybody really wants to see, at least on the analysts and the investors that want to see. Without this, without all the work that we've been watching with Giga Texas, without all of the machinery, the equipment, and the expertise to put all of this stuff together, Cybertruck, or it just wouldn't exist. And I think this is what he was talking about of being difficult, not necessarily the truck itself.
Right. Andrew says there seems to be a lot of space behind that photo. What do you say to that?
Yeah, the production line on the ground floor for Cybertruck essentially was 2 column widths wide, or 2 grid lines wide, and each column is about 45 roughly feet apart. So about 90 to 100 feet wide was the production line for Giga Texas. Why do I say that? The factory itself is approximately 1,200 feet wide, and we only saw a extremely small fraction of the factory. And all the stuff that you see behind there is some additional parts of this production line. Maybe it's associated with it. Maybe it's some of the equipment, electronics, that kind of thing. But, I was trying to look back to figure out when I first started covering this. Believe it or not, late 2022, I started covering the permits for the construction of this part of the factory. And the permits talked about General Assembly Lines 2 and 3. And that's in addition to the existing General Assembly Line 1 that was making the Model Ys. And throughout the last 12, 14 months since I first saw those permits, it's pretty clear that they are assembling and preparing for yet another assembly line. And it's actually much farther along than I think people think. Wow. Now, it's not just the production General Assembly final lines that are important. There's the other big things like the 4680 production. And currently they're in the process of finishing up a internal expansion of 4680s, going from currently 1 production line with 3 others that are on the verge of becoming operational. So let's call it 4 production lines. So by the end of 2024, there's going to be 8 of them here. So I think that's huge, and it's necessary to support the production of the Cybertrucks. The casting machine area, they are essentially working on 1 plus a little bit more 9,000 ton gigapress. The other one is on the verge of being commissioned. That should happen sometime early the first quarter. And those things are necessary to making the Cybertrucks. And if we're going to see a production ramp, those have to be fully operational. They've discovered that there were some issues with the oil spray that they use to liberate the castings from the gigapresses themselves, and it caused atmospheric issues. So they've been putting in an entirely new air filtration and ventilation system throughout the casting machine structure, in addition to adding a large furnace to melt down the scraps on site to make more ingots that they are used to make the casting machines. Stamping 2 has been added this year with all of the large equipment that have been put in, AIDA stamping machines, which are not EDRA, it's AIDA, and it's like a block long, a huge machine that stamps out things. That and other items have been put into that. All of this is to support future production, current Cybertruck and future production, and all of this is going on at the same time. So the question is what do you see behind there? We see about another 1,000 feet of production space that's available or being assembled right now.
Right. Well, let's get to this last slide because I have other questions and new details. So last slide. Boom.
Okay. This is, again, part of the demonstration for us. So it doesn't necessarily show how the production line goes. It was really for us to look at. But a couple of things that you can see here. First, that kind of that tannish goldish look, that's the top of the battery pack, the structural pack. The center console, the seats, Actually, in this case, it doesn't show it, but the real ones have the carpet. They have the insulating panels. They have everything attached to that battery, and it's just lifted right up inside and bolted in. And now you have the structural pack, which is giving structural rigidity to the shell. It also has essentially finished the interior. You know, the only other parts, the dashboard and the rear seats. The rear seats are actually attached to the rear bulkhead before the structural pack is put in. And it's also done shortly after the window glass is put in. So it's very, very early in the process. So they put the dashboard in, they put the rear seats in, and then the structural pack comes in. And other than the A, B, and C pillar finishing panels, the interior is essentially done. And I mentioned the HVAC and air conditioning structural, not structural, the sub assembly. That's put on later, and it's just bolted in from the front directly on. And then it has all the connections already for the dashboard. So there's very little, if any, need for humans to be reaching in and assembling or bolting anything down to get this particular picture. And the last thing I would say is at the bottom left, you can see right next to that orange cable, you can see 3 bolt heads kind of with a built-in washer. That's part of what is bolting it together with the front casting. That's part of the front casting.
Well, I want to know, Joe, were you able to take like a full-on walking video of the production line?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I had to do it in reverse order. So we start at the
Right.
south end and
Well,
work our way to the north.
I'm going to try to pull up my video so we can play it in the background so that
Okay.
people can see. Let's see if it loads.
So as we can,
So I'm just going to mute it, and we're just going to play this in the background. But I do want to get to some of the main highlights of the Elon interview that just came out with Sandy Munro, because I haven't had time to watch it yet. I'm sure you have.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so let's start with maybe the most important detail that we got. Is it about the low-cost vehicle being produced here in Texas?
Yes, and that was something that I guess first came out publicly in Walter Isaacson's book, where he referenced that there was a decision made sometime in May to redivert the next generation vehicle, at least the first production of it here at Giga Texas. Part of the reasons that they cited, and I think Elon has confirmed in the recent Sandy Munro video interview, was 1, Giga Mexico was going to take a while to get completed. 2, they have all the engineers and all the expertise here at Giga Texas. So why have them have to travel and live somewhere else when they are right here? And 3, you know, whether it was, and this is part of what my observations I'm adding into this, whether it was happenstance or if they actually had a better idea earlier than even May that was going to be done. There's been a lot of equipment that has been arriving over the entire year here at Giga Texas, way more than what is needed to support the production line that you're seeing here, probably at least double that. And that's been being assembled and moved inside. And, you know, there's been a lot of reconfiguration work. You know, Giga Texas, if they're not breaking up concrete, it's not Giga Texas. So they've been cutting up some concrete. Some of it was here that you see for like this area and kind of the pit area, but some of it's in other parts of the factory as well. So I think that production line is much farther along than people would believe right now. It's not finished. They still have some details to do, but from what Sandy's interview suggested from Elon Musk is the production, or at least the design and preparation for production process for that next generation vehicle is well along, and I don't doubt that. And part of that is the assembly line, and I know that that's well along, much more than people expect.
Right. What else was new or unexpected from that interview? Like, well, actually, I'm laughing because Xander says Elon did a great job interviewing Sandy. So
yeah, Sandy did talk a bit, and that is very true. But I would say if you've ever seen previous Elon interviews, they either are questions that we already know answers to, which doesn't really help,
Yes.
or Elon has a tendency of kind of maybe going off subject or so, or going in different directions. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not. With Sandy, at least with his long-winded questions, was directing, what we wanted to hear from Elon, but also added more context as well, at least in my opinion.
Right. Mitchell says, Joe, it's pretty obvious they're already pre-setting up as much as they can for the new lower cost model. Remember, China's chief is now at Austin betting for this very purpose.
Yeah, actually that's another observation that I made. I haven't heard too many people talk about this, but it was pretty clear to me just talking and listening to a lot of the employees and some of the activity going on. And I did actually talk to Tom Zhu as well, and I think that's who he's talking about. There were a lot more Giga Shanghai employees here than I had expected. Now, I had heard that they had moved some here to help with the standing up of the production lines for Giga Texas. So that's not new, but my just walking around and talking and listening, there were a lot more Giga Shanghai employees here than I had expected.
Interesting. Is there anything else you want to bring up from the Sandy interview, or do you want to get to some of these questions that I have starred?
Let's just do the questions first, and if something strikes a memory cell, I'll bring it up.
Is that again? I'm sorry, apologies in advance that I haven't watched the talk yet. I'm also getting over a cold, but is that the main detail?
No, they talked a lot about 48 volts infrastructure of the vehicle. They talked about the risk taking to make this vehicle, and how pretty much every other manufacturer would never have made this vehicle or made the decisions along the way. Of course, they talked a little bit about why it was delayed, and we did talk about that. They talked about the extension of the building at the south end, and that's something that I'll just say I've been covering. A lot of people have been aware of for quite some time, but now we're seeing that coming to fruition. And so they did mention that. And there was a few other things.
Tina wants to know, was the factory in production while you were there? It looked like the line was moving.
It was in demo mode. So the robots would be moving. They would pick up, say, the windshield, or they pick up the fenders or so forth, and they would maneuver them and place them, but then they would take them right back off. So it was kind of a production loop, and that's very understandable. All of the Cybertrucks that we saw are real. They're going to go to customers, but they were just doing demos for us.
Well, and I just paused the video. There's still a little bit left, but I mean, it's just incredible that they let us film this whole thing. I really wish that I had more time to walk through it slowly and get close-ups. And you guys, I had like no time. So I did my best.
That was my biggest regret, is the time was so small. I had to make a choice. Do I make a video, or do I try to get high resolution still images? And I just decided I'm going to make the video, and I'll take screen grabs. So if you're accustomed to high resolution photos that I normally do, they're not quite that much, but it's just because I didn't have enough time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's get to some of these questions. Let's see. Nina wants to know, why is the Cybertruck only rated at 11,000 pounds towing capacity, which I don't think is that bad, but
I think she may be comparing to back in 2019. They said it might have been 14,000. I don't know. A lot has changed between November of 2019 and November of 2023. Some of it is that, I've heard this mentioned, and I can't remember exactly which interview. It might have been a Sandy Monroe one or a different one, but it might have been it might have been part of Top Gear's coverage. But the Cybertruck that we have today versus the one that was in 2019 is not the same. And they actually went through a complete redesign of the Cybertruck. Some of it was to make it a little bit smaller, on average 5% smaller. Some of it was to introduce new technologies that the original one didn't have, like, for example, the drive-by-wire. So it's very likely that along the way, just the realities of building a production model showed them that the towing capacity would be only 11,000. Which, if I understand, I'm not a guy that uses trucks a lot, but I understand that's still a pretty good amount to be towing.
And I'm going to
So I
restart.
hope that answers your question, Nina.
Yes, I'm going to restart the video. Unless you guys are bored of it, let me know. I feel like it's good to have in the background. Okay, so let's see. Ross wants to know what production rate is required at Giga Texas to fulfill Kimball Musk. Look, the Cybertruck order backlog, and how long will it therefore take to deliver all of those over 1 million orders if they haven't canceled?
Well, that's a good question. The answer is right now, from what has been publicly discussed from Tesla, is they're hoping for, let's say, 250,000 per year run rate. And that would be after the ramp is completely up. That's going to take some time to get to that. But if they do that, that's on average about 5,000 vehicles per week. And currently they run 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts. So that would be, what is that? About 900 per day, something. I mean, I'm doing public math, so I apologize if I'm not exactly accurate. So if they do 900 per day, divide that by, let's just say 10 hours, that would be, 90 an hour. That's about 1.5 per hour, which is a pretty good run rate. I think that would be maybe probably difficult to achieve. I don't know. It just seems like a lot to me. But they're going to have to get to that point. One of the things, if you think about the castings, is you need 2 per Cybertruck, a front and a rear. So you need to have the gigapresses up and running to be able to make enough of those to be able to support that. So that's one of the limiting factors. There's also, some downtime and other things that may get into there, but roughly 5,000 per week is what they're going to need to get to. I think it's probably going to take at least through the first quarter before they get above 1,000 a week, maybe 1,500 a week. So the bulk of 2024 is going to be a ramp, and they'll just continue to increase that from there. So to answer your question, depending on how the back order is, it's going to be several years, I think.
I bet. Glenn wants to know, Joe, why do you think Tesla is offering a clear PPF?
Fingerprints.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. And besides, it's a product that people might pay for, so why not?
Well, I mean, I guess when I think about the Model 3 or even the Model Y, that paint is pretty fragile, right?
Yeah, but the Cybertruck doesn't have any paint.
I know, right. So it's like,
one thing that comes to mind that I don't know if it's part of what they offer or not, but it's kind of popular here at least in this part of Texas, is windshields get broken a lot. So there are some options of putting a clear film on the outside of the windshields. It's not common, but I've seen that before. And for the Cybertruck, that may be a very desirable thing because that windshield is enormous.
Right. Okay, so let's see here. Vlad had a question. Let me see if I can pull it up. Hey, Ellie and Joe, do you think Tesla will produce an ATV or a boat, which some people argue Cybertruck could be a boat?
Yeah, I'm wondering when we're going to see YouTube videos of people attempting to float it.
I mean, could it?
Well, Elon has said that he wanted it to have that capability. There is a wade pit for testing that here at Giga Texas. It's been used maybe 1 or 2 times, but since then I haven't seen it being used. But maybe they'll do some testing. But I don't know. I mean, they said that they wanted it to be able to do that, but it's not been something that we've heard recently, and they certainly didn't discuss that at the delivery event. As far as an ATV, they had made reference at one point that they were going to do that. I know they have the kid Cyber Quad, but who knows? Maybe they will. But right now, I think their focus is getting this line up and running and getting that ramp going. And they also have a new product that they're working on too. So, they can do a lot, but I think they need to focus right now.
Well, Charbax says Teslas make up only 0.5% of all cars on the roads in the USA. It's literally the car for the 1%. Well, isn't that why they're working on a lower cost vehicle?
I think so. I mean, they would like to have a larger TAM, which is just a larger population that can afford and use those vehicles. And that new car is targeted for that. And with the Cybertruck, we're seeing some of the production methodologies that will be used, and probably some new ones to try to help them be able to achieve that. The market is very large for cars in the United States. There's millions and millions that are sold every year. So, it's going to take not only just Tesla, but it's going to take a lot of other manufacturers to be able to figure out a way of making vehicles that are desirable and affordable.
Right. Now, I just want to check in. You only have about 5 or 10 minutes or so?
About maybe 10 minutes max, more, maybe 15 if we get lucky, but that's about it.
Yeah, I want you to have time to prep. And you will tell people where you'll be if they want to hang out with you even longer.
I'm going to be on Herbert Ong's video. I think this is going to be a recorded one, so I'm not sure when he's going to release it, but I'm going to be talking with Herbert here in about 30 minutes or so.
Oh, so I beat Herbert.
Yes, you did. But yes. Brian from My Tesla Weekend interviewed me yesterday.
Okay, but was it live?
No, it's going to be videoed.
Well, F it, we'll do it live. Live pays off. I seriously think so. It's like, the information's already out there now. Well, I do want to mention what I'm literally just thought of, which is I'm in the giving spirit. Okay. It's Christmas time. You can see my skirt, and I want to do a giveaway, at least 10 days worth of giveaway. So I'm going to do a giveaway, at least 10 days of it, leading up to Christmas. If you are a subscriber on X or a Patreon, you will be entered, and I'm going to give something away every day, at least 10 gifts. So if you want, and honestly, I might give this away, which is my Cybertruck wristband that I kept intact. I have a couple other stuff to give away. So if you are interested in getting a prize, sign up to be a subscriber or a Patreon. What do you think about that, Joe?
Sounds like a great deal to me.
And I have shirts as well that are going to be in the giveaways, although I don't have it on me. But I'm giving stuff away. So including, you know what I might actually give away too?
What's that?
Is the baby chunk of the Starship launch pad, because
okay.
I have some giant chunks. So this giveaway will have Tesla and SpaceX stuff, but I figured what better way to boost my my subscribers and Patreons, because you guys, that is literally, I mean, Joe, you're a content creator as well. Would you agree with me that you need more than just YouTube revenue?
Yeah. And the Patreon is, at least for me, has been really helpful. YouTube's been good. X is coming along, but any support is very much appreciated. I don't know if people realize how much goes into making actual content, and certainly flying over Giga Texas and getting all the drone videos and getting up there and then editing it all. There's a lot more work than most think. Some people think as soon as the drone lands, the video is over.
Yeah. Right. No, not really. That's why I like doing things live as well, because it's a little less editing. But I could edit clips of this. But yeah, so if you guys are interested in getting some Christmas goodies, sign up to be a subscriber on X, which is I think $3 a month. And then I think my Patreon tier, there's a pretty low one. So yeah. Cool. So what else should we cover? I think there were some more questions, unless you had another thought come up.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, and I was talking about this with my boyfriend. Andrew says there's some interesting chatter about the Cybertruck coming to the EU. And we were thinking, aren't the roads in most of those countries just like not going to be big enough, or no?
Well, they are very small over there, but you know, you do occasionally see the big Ford vehicles, the trucks and Rams, and you know, some of the Chevrolets and everything. So I think there is a market for it. You know, I think some people have suggested, well, maybe Tesla will build a smaller version. If that ever comes to be, that's going to be quite some time from now. As I mentioned earlier, they need to focus on some of the products that they're doing now and get those out to market. They have the next gen vehicle coming. They just launched the Cybertruck. They have the refresh for the Model Y coming up possibly later this year. Obviously, they're working on the Tesla bot. So there's a lot of, you know, FSD. There's a lot of things that are going on that I think that they really need to focus on. But, you know, getting the Cybertruck to Europe is going to be interesting to see just how does it handle their regulations as far as pedestrians, crash, that kind of thing. And it sounds like Tesla's going to try it. So we'll see.
Well, I do want to thank Will for the $50 super chat. Thank you so much for the generous super chat and being in the Christmas spirit. He says, thank you so much for the Ellie shirt you gave me after our sunset walk in the dunes Thursday night before IFT2. Well, I had a couple of shirts down with me at Starbase, so I'm glad that you liked it. And I'm hoping to do another run as well soon of these Starship shirts. So stay tuned for that. But thank you.
Do you have an IFT2 shirt? Or do you have an IFT2 shirt coming?
So we are designing.
I hope so.
We're designing that.
That's
I need
cool.
to, I would like to get that out as soon as possible because Christmas is 20 days away, which is also hard to believe, right?
Yes, I know.
Oh my gosh, seriously. Okay, predictions for Cybertruck for 2024. Go.
As far as what, production or demand or?
Well, production. How many people will get their Cybertrucks in 2024?
Throughout the entire year, knowing that the ramp is going to change, you know, it's going to, you know, there are going to be ups and downs, but it's generally going to be up. I'm going to say 80,000.
80,000. Okay. You heard it here today. Michael wants to know, have you ever lost a drone to a bird strike?
No, I have not. I've had birds be very interested in the drone around Giga Texas, especially in the spring and the fall. The what are they called? They're not swallows. The name escapes me, but they make a bunch of nests on the south and the north bridge, particularly the north bridge, and that's where I fly. And when I'm bringing the drone down or launching it, they think that it's a threat. So you'll get a whole bunch of birds swarming around it. But I've actually had some bigger ones take some interest as well, but I have not ever hit a bird.
Yeah, well, that's good. Okay, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate you. Actually, you guys, you should thank Joe because he's the one who suggested this. So thank you to you. Like I said, I've been trying to get over a little bit of a sickness. It is not COVID, according to a test. So I don't know what it is, but yes, I'm really looking forward to the next step for me and Cybertruck, which is getting to test drive one because Sandy was nice enough to let me sit in the front seat, but he had to return that truck pretty quickly after he brought it to the Luster Pearl. That's where they held the after party, if you guys were not in town and don't know what that is. So actually, I was very glad because I stopped there quite randomly. I don't know, were you there when Sandy came?
When he got there, no.
Okay, but later, I guess they did bring it back, but it was like, it was really cool to see it before the event and like get inside of it, these things that we've been wanting to do for so long now. But you still haven't test driven one either, correct?
Nope.
Okay. Well, we'll see who.
So I have an Ellie in space question.
Okay.
When IFT3?
So I think maybe January or February.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that they said possibly in December, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do you?
I think January.
Yeah.
I know they want to go as soon as possible, but a reality is it's going to take them a while.
Charbax wants to know, how good was that after party? How many people did you speak with? I kind of dipped out early, actually. I was on the stage for a little bit with Zach and Jesse. I actually was supposed to be on a panel, and I kind of left. Well,
I actually stayed.
It's kind of disorganized. It was like they wanted me to be a part of it, but I felt more comfortable just kind of going on stage with Zach and Jesse and giving my input. I don't consider myself a Tesla expert. I've never claimed to be. I guess maybe they're not looking for that, but I went to dinner because at that point my social battery was very low.
I actually had a great time. I stayed there till about 1 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe not quite, maybe 12:30 or so, but there was just so many people that wanted to talk. It was amazing.
Wow. That's really late for you. I know you well enough to know that's very late for you.
Yeah. But here's an interesting thing real quick. I met the owner of Starbase Brewing.
Yes.
And you see their advertisements down at Starbase all over the place, and they actually sort of a plug for them. They sell through HEB, which is a grocery store here in Texas.
Really?
But interestingly enough, when I'm flying at Giga Texas on the west side, especially the southwest side where they're doing a new clearing, you can see his house. He's right there.
Wow. I've wanted to partner with them, or I've wanted to offer them, hey, do you want me to promote you on my channel? But I don't drink at all. I haven't drank since I was 15. So I'm like, is this a conflict? Is this a little not genuine if I promote Starbase Brewing? I kind of think it is. So that's why you haven't seen it on my channel.
Well, I don't know. If he's not sponsoring you, then you're just talking about what they are doing.
Yeah.
But he seems like a great guy, and they have a really neat idea for their products, and their goal is to have their product on the moon. So hopefully they get it.
Oh, we'll just have to see. Well, thank you, Joe, for being on the show. And you have reminded me that I need to do more live streams, because I was at a point where I was doing a lot of live streams, and I feel bad that I haven't been. But, it's been the holidays and I've been traveling a lot. So it seems like you guys enjoyed these live streams. We enjoy doing them. And hopefully you learned something about Cybertruck. Joe is a wealth of knowledge. Yeah. Any final thoughts? Final thoughts with Joe?
No, just thank you very much for having me here. And as I started it off, just thank you again to Tesla for the incredible openness, and also for just letting me do what I do for such a long time. The relationship has been incredible, and the friendships that I've made, and it's just, you won't see that anywhere else. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's crazy for both of our journeys, just how they've evolved.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to end it here, but if you want to see Joe, more of Joe, I guess this might be recorded, but he will be coming up on Brighter with Herbert's channel pretty soon here. Oh, and Bimmer Geezer just joined the chat with a $50 super chat. Just saw you guys were on live. Thank you so much, Bimmer Geezer. And you know what? Someone did ask me what's the status of the zero-G flight, so I might as well address that. We still don't know when that zero-G flight is going to be. If you guys are unfamiliar, I won a seat on the flight and it's been postponed. It was supposed to be in October, and the FAA did not clear the airspace. So they have not gotten back to me with the next potential flight date. I know it's going to be next year. Is it going to be in January or June? I don't know, but it sounds like they're going to move it to Florida. So instead of driving to Houston, I will have to fly to Florida.
Cool.
But it's like, I feel bad because I won my seat, and it's still a little bit of an inconvenience, right? As I have to plan a trip and I don't know when it is, and it's a moving target, but people paid, almost $15,000 for this experience. So hopefully they can figure it out. Yeah. But thank you so much, Bimmer Geezer, for super chatting, and to everyone who's liked and supported this live stream. And we will do more of them. But don't forget, I'm going to be doing a Christmas giveaway. So if you are a patron or a subscriber on X, I'm going to be giving some stuff away, including, I think, these things. This is a small piece that'll be easy to ship of the concrete pad, because I have a giant piece now. And this is my Cybertruck wristband. What do you think? Should I give this away?
Sure, why not?
You think someone would want it is the better question.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and I will see you soon on another stream.